are you, Jorn? Everything is good?
Yeah, it's all right. It's I guess it's a special day today, the 20th with the inauguration of a new US president and a bit of excitement during
Yeah.
the lockdown. I guess the opposite is that every day feels a bit much like the same, right?
I
It's
know. I know.
Groundhog Day. It's like what are you doing today? Same as yesterday, same as tomorrow, and
Yeah.
same as we did last week, and et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
So,
That's a bit of
but
a
good to speak to you, and thank you for inviting me. And it's it's nice to have something to do on a Wednesday evening.
You know that independent watch brands and obviously people like ourselves that try to share the message of independent watch brands, we are always looking for doing things slightly different. So today, because of the inauguration of the US president, we knew that nobody would have talked about watches out there. So we said, let's go and just do it. I'm sure is a good enough idea. So
Yeah.
yeah, Jorn, so today we've had a few chats with you, and it was nice to go through your journey, 20 years journey, as we said, with Linde Werdelin. A slightly bit longer as a human being on this planet, trying to leave your mark, like we're all doing. I thought today to bring to life some of the pieces that are, some of them are definitely my favorite pieces in the Linde Werdelin collection, and try to go through your story with Linde Werdelin by having a look at the collections, at the timepieces themselves. So I would like to start from a very important watch for you, Jorn. The watch that in 2006 basically marked the debut of the brand, although the brand started in 2002 technically.
Yeah.
But this biometer collection that I am holding now was basically the first big step for the brand to start existing as an independent watchmaker.
That's correct. Do you want me to tell me a bit about the biphometer, as it was called, was is the original family of watches, and what you have there is the 3-timer Nord that we launched just when we came out of the last lockdown last summer. And I mean, that particular watch is new in the sense for us. It's the first watch we have done with a fume dial. And when I first thought about it, I was looking at an old, I think, modified Rolex piece with a fume dial going like here from black to blue, and I thought, well, would that work in one of our pieces? And I think a fume dial is a very classic, interpretation of a dial, and I wasn't so sure whether it would work in our watches because they are modern in function and they are modern in form. So when we had a go, and I just thought it worked really well, and then to top it off, we thought, why don't we just make a little change to the case, and instead of having it satin and polished, we decided to sandblast it and sandblast the bracelet also. And I think 2020 was a year of
I think it's very visible here.
Yeah, 2020 was a year where a lot of brands launched sports watches, steel, blue dials. But funny enough, as you have also mentioned yourself, is first of all, that is the original case shape, and it's very much the original bracelet, which we first came up with in, I think, 2008 or 2009.
Yeah. For a second, because I would like to make this point. It's a very important point. So you started conceiving this model, the biphometer, in 2002, to then be ready in 2006 for the launch. And the watch was looking contemporary and modern back in the days. Do you see it still as a contemporary and modern timepiece, knowing that some key elements like the configuration, as you said, the design of the bracelet, looks absolutely still very, very original. How do you interpret it these days?
Well, I think which is credit to Morten, is that when we decided what our watch should look like, we obviously looked at what was out there, what we did like and what we didn't like, and we had this idea about an instrument sitting on top of a watch, which gave that very noticeable shape of the case, where it's wider at the bottom than at the top, and that's particularly because you can attach an instrument. So I think the shape is in some way quite classic, but it if you can put a percentage on it, sort of 10-20% different and unique. But also we haven't really changed the shape of the case ever since. So the two other families, the octopus and the spider, have exactly the same measurements and is very much the same DNA. And sometimes we get asked, why don't we come up with a new design? And I personally, I think that would be wrong. I think we still have so much to do in our universes, and we are still so fairly unknown. And like you say, I think a lot of people still think of it as a very, modern and contemporary design. And for that to grow, certainly I want us to be quite, if the word is conservative in the way that we move forward. But I do look a little bit, say, towards a Porsche 911, where you can see the design DNA coming straight through from 1961.
Absolutely, it's 20 years of consistency in your case, but also
and also, funnily enough, if I can mention it, this is the 90th year of the JLC Reverso, which I believe, and many other people, is the first real sports watch ever, conceived. And when you look at it, and it's such a beautiful watch, and that design remained true to a 90-year-old story.
Yeah. Tell me something, Jorn, in terms of the details, because again, there has been a lot of noise, as you said, with the Moser launching the monolink steel bracelet, Czapek as well with the new Antarctic, which are two models that we love, absolutely love. And when we call them groundbreaking, I have to be careful myself, because again, I look back and I remember you in 2006, you conceived exactly a monolink bracelet, the very, very modern and contemporary look. It doesn't look anything like a Royal Oak or a Nautilus, which is the risk that you have when you start toying with
yes, and obviously, sometimes people do say that, when people sort of troll on Instagram, etc., they will say, oh, but it's a copy of an AP, etc. But actually, my view is that if you look at most other watches that are round with normal horns and a normal strap, well, then they are a copy of a Patek. And just because you have a certain design language, which to some extent is common amongst sports watches, and which people interpret in different ways.
But I think if you
put us next to an AP or an Hublot, you will find that they are very different in execution.
Absolutely, I think those kind of comments, unfortunately, and there's no way you can comment on a bracelet like this, which from the design point of view, you can see there is a real complete evolution, which was very contemporary in 2006, and I find it very contemporary now. It is a monolink. It is completely sandblasted in this case. It has a completely revolutionary system to change the strap as well, because the same collection obviously is then available also in a nice rubber, with a nice rubber, and the action to actually change the strap is very, very intuitive and very, very quick. So also the choice, tell me about the choice about the buckle or the non-buckle, Jorn, because you managed to bring integration to the perfect level on both, on the case, perfect integration.
I think the same with the Werdelin is that you know, as most of us we do, you can't see, but you have your hands on your desk and you know on the keyboard, and there's nothing so annoying as a very thick you know buckle which sits below your wrist.
Yeah.
So it was very important for us to have that very sort of streamlined going through, so that it would be pleasant to wear.
Look at this, absolutely. It's a great concept. So the buckle is there, but it's inside and is easily, you know, it's very functional, very smooth, and very secure, because with the 2 clicks that you would expect, of course, to get tight. But at the same time, with a perfect, here we go, with a perfect integration on the other side, because there's no buckle, basically.
Yep.
And so these are the small details that make it, they make things very special. There is a question from Rapido Lexi, Jorn, besides congratulating you on the design and the fact that it completely looks very different to what people, you know, instinctively sometimes would comment about. But do you have any plans to make these this collection in a smaller caliber? Or I remind you, this is a 44, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we call it a 44 because that's how people understand it, and you know, it is slightly bigger in terms of the diameter at the bottom, and slightly less at the top.
I'm gonna show it now.
No, so very shortly. No, we don't have any plans to do 40 mil or 42. As I said earlier, I think we have enough to do without worrying so much about the size. And I remember a number of years when we were exhibiting in Basel, and that was the time when people came to us and they said, "Oh, but you've got to do it bigger, right? You've got to do 46 or 48 mil." And I think now we are in a period where there's a lot of people looking at vintage pieces and that are much smaller. But I think for us at least, it's a good size. We like it that way, and it's also staying true to the original DNA. I'm not going to say we'll never make a smaller or a bigger one, but for right now, it's not in the immediate planning. There's also something to it, is that it's not only about making it smaller, it's actually a complete redesign of the dimensions of any case. And it's also, you know, a different caliber, you know, there's so many things. And so it's actually not just making a new case, it's making a whole new collection. Absolutely. And I want to point out, Jorn, on my wrist, which is, I don't have a small wrist, but I don't have a massive wrist. And, you know, you can see how proportionate and how it sits actually on the wrist in a, you know, how you would expect it. And actually there is still quite a lot of room on one side. So I wouldn't define this as an oversized watch in any possible way. And I am a big fan, Jorn, when you spend good money on a watch, you also want to read the time in a proper way. And you gave that possibility with a fantastic contrast between the lumen hands that you have added to the dial, overimposed indices as well, which is a very, very nice touch on the top of this guilloche decorated dial, and 3 ways to read the time. No, here this is called the 3 timer because actually you have the time shown in 3 different time zones if you want. Yes, exactly. So yeah, you have the normal time, you have the 24-hour hands, and then you have the bezel, which you can then turn, and you can use it in different ways. You can use it versus the home time, or you can use it versus the sorry, let me show. So you have the minutes, and then you have your GMT, shall we call it GMT hand, that is showing in this case 5 o'clock, and then by operating on the crown, which is very smooth and is bidirectional, you can of course use the same GMT for a third time zone. So in this case, you have 5 o'clock on the dial, and then it's 6 o'clock at night on the bezel. Very, very clever, very clever. Do you personally like more, and I'm going to show you guys now because I've had this question the last time. You perfectly know that
three-timer comes also with the lovely shiny finishing of both the case and the bracelet. Jorn, what's your favorite? I'm going to show now the shiny finishing, which is very rich, and you have combined with a shiny dial as well, which is the blue ocean dial, if I'm not wrong.
I think personally, it was a new experience for me to see the three-timer in a matte sandblasted case and with the Fume dial, and I think it was that kind of combination. And you know what, it was when we came out of the first lockdown and we were sort of coming out of the dark into the light, and you felt things were a little bit opaque as they are now, and I felt that story with that the time that we launched it, and the reason that we call it Nord is also a reflection of when I've been sitting up in Denmark overlooking the sea, and the colors of the North Sea very often are these very dark blue and black and silvery colors. So I think when we put all these things together, for me it was like just at least for now, the perfect solution for a three-timer.
I absolutely love it. I thank you for stressing the point about functionality as well, Jorn, because it's a big element of the whole story of Linde Werdelin. So if the time is not readable, if the contrasts on the dial are not good, if the strap is not wearable and is not ergonomical, it can't be a Linde Werdelin, simply.
No, I think there's some, kind of crucial elements to when you think that it is a sports watch, and it comes with durability, readability, wearability. And funny enough, I just had a conversation with a person that we might work with as an explorer, who is also a friend of Leo Holding, who is one of our explorers, and he said that Leo had recommended our pieces because they actually really do work in very stressful environments. And last winter, before the pandemic, we did an expedition with Leo Holding where he climbed up a mountain in South America in the jungle, which is super vertical, where they spent 6 days climbing up the super vertical mountain. And we gave
which is Jorn, sorry, I stop you there. So it's not the usual marketing pitch on
No. I think that we kind of go a little bit opposite of that, because I just find all these sort of marketing tricks that they're too easy to see through, right? They're too transparent that you do them because you want to sell more watches, and maybe not so much with the point, are we actually learning anything from this? And I think when we had Leo, he took the Spiderlight 3D TP, which is the lightest watch that we've ever made, at about 60 grams, and it's very strong, and it's very immediately legible because we made sure that we had maximum lume so that he could read the time when he was in the jungle, because obviously when you're in the jungle it's very dark and it's very rainy.
I can help you with that, Jorn. I have a Spider Speed here, which is indeed very light. This is the green version, of course. Sorry.
Yes, so that's the Spider Speed carbon, but in forged carbon. We also have, and I don't know if you have one of those there, but we have the one in 3D TP carbon, which is layered carbon, which we both do for the Octopus and the Spiderlight. But this is also a very original, very light chronograph.
It is very light, and I can, of course, I can compare it straight away with the three-timer, which is in steel, so a completely different beast. I want to point out, because we have quite a few questions, the three-timer amazingly is at in and around the £5,000, pound more, a pound less without VAT, which is an incredible offer for the value you get. I am lucky enough to be wearing the watch now as we speak, and I would have zero doubts in that price bracket. Sorry, we were talking about the speed as well. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think just to add that, all our watches are made in limited series and mostly to order. And that was the decision that we made about 5 years ago, that we really wanted to work in a different way, both from the point of how we engage with our clients, but also how we produce, and to make sure that we are never pushed to sell another watch. We always kind of have one watch less than is asked for. Yeah, and it gives us an enormous amount of flexibility in terms of what we can do, because we never end up with watches that we don't manage to kind of get out the door.
Of course. Can I ask you then, from the origins, I will take the biformator case as the origin of the brand.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have developed with a similar DNA, but of course, working in some major details like, removing material from the case, like in the case of this Speed, and giving a slightly even more extremely contemporary look. So what was the thinking at the time to go from a concept like the biformator and to go to an evolution like the Speed?
When I think back of it, it was a change in the way that we thought about our pieces. So when we first worked on it, it was very much about the idea about having a mechanical timepiece where you could attach a digital instrument for going up the mountains and for going down in the sea. Then after, in 2008, 2009, when we had the instruments, then it was a bit like, okay, now we have defined the universes that we are in. How do we let those universes and the instruments inspire how we think about our families? And that's really what changed the biformator family into the Spido family, and then into the octopus family. And it really also came about in 2007, when we had a team, including Leo Holding, climbing Everest, and they came back to us, and we were quite disappointed when they told us that they had worn the instrument to the top of the mountain, but left the watch itself at base camp, which is 5,500 meters, because it was too heavy. And that was obviously not at all what we had hoped for. And Morten then went back to the lab and thought, well, it's not just enough to do a watch in a lightweight material. Let's really rethink about, how we can, redesign the watch and reinterpret the watch. And he started scraping out material from the bezel, from the case, and that became the Spido light. And the name Spido is obviously comes from a spider where you think about something which is extremely light, very versatile, and very, very strong. So hence the name.
Very well.
And I also think that I've sometimes been asked if there was one watch that if you could only make one particular model, what would it be? And that would be the piece you're holding in your hands. It's the Spido light. It's titanium grade 5, which is very, very hard and very hard to work in, and with the 3D movement. So, and it's not, we didn't want to skeletonize the movement, because I personally, I'm not a huge fan of the see-through, but we wanted to have that sort of three-dimensionality into the movement. And then again, obviously comes with constraints, because we want to have our watches very, very durable, and obviously the more you take away from a movement, the more delicate it becomes. As you were telling the story, I was showing both on the carbon, the forged carbon, Speed, and on the Spido light, what you were mentioning, when Morten had the idea of starting to remove material where material was not necessary, which was not the case, of course, of the debut edition with the biformator. But when it started to become about using the watch, mountaineering, swimming, diving, etc., then this became a need, and you have worked on that. This titanium. And I think that piece is to some extent, that is the essence of Linde Werdelin.
Yeah. No, it's so good. There are a lot of questions, Jorn, about the movements. Now, I would like to introduce the fact we have discussed in the past. Your model was always to because of your needs being changeable depending on what you needed in terms of equipment out there in the world that you were creating of Linde Werdelin. You have worked with some independent watchmakers to work out, to cross their ideas with your needs and to come to the perfect adaptation of what you needed horologically. So incredible makers like Andersen.
No, I think in terms of the movement, it's a journey on its own, and it's more than a discussion, or the simple question is always, is it in-house, which is not quite sort of asking the right questions unless you are a very, very big brand, and not even very, very big brands always do all in-house, because it's not really the most ideal thing to do. But when we started out, we did watches with ETA movements, and actually the biphometer family is with ETA movements. But then, as we started exploring more into it, we worked with Frederic movements. We worked with Sven Andersen, both on with some old, new old stock a shield movements that we modified.
Sven Andersen, for those that are not familiar, of course, the pioneering Danish watchmaker, who's sharing with you the origin as well, because for those that don't know,
he had his 40th jubileum this year, I think, or last year in 2020. And then the journey continued on to Frederic movements we used in a couple of series, but then we found that because of they're sort of a finer movements that when they were unwound, you couldn't wind them with the crown. You had to use the rotor first, upon which, because they were sort of quite delicate, and we didn't think that really struck a note with the story and the universes that we're in. And then we started working with a factory owned by the Czapek family called Cvstos. And we use some of their movements in some of the spider lights and in some of the spider speeds. So
they're specialized in chronographs.
Exactly. So both in the classic series of the spider light is a chronograph caliber, but without the chronograph, and the one you had with the carbon, the spider speed, is a Cvstos. This particular movement is something we have designed with Jean-François Mouchon of Chronots, that we work with and have worked with for probably about almost 10 years, I would imagine.
Which, just for our followers' reference, the same Jean-François Mouchon and Chronots that obviously came up to the the attention of the bigger public with the collaborations with MDNF, HYT, just to mention a few.
And I think they make some very beautiful pieces with MS for the moment. So no, absolutely, and I mean him and his team, they're delightful to work with, and always very creative and understand exactly what we need. And actually before the pandemic struck, we had started thinking about a new caliber based on what you have there. But given that we haven't been able to, I haven't been in Switzerland since last early February. So everything has been sort of delayed a little bit. So that is also that's also a Cvstos.
There is sorry, Jorn, there are a couple of questions if you want to just have a little break. One is a fun one from Francisco. Hola Francisco, ¿qué tal? Francisco is saying, nice, but what I want to know is what cigar you had yesterday.
What cigar I had yesterday?
Yes. We take it as a little break.
Unfortunately, to keep my health, and I know it's very disappointing, but to keep my health there, I can't really smoke cigars anymore. So I have some in my humidor, and if you want to come around, I'm very happy to offer you one.
Same here. Another question, a little bit more serious, from Gabriel. How do you design a movement, Jorn? If you do come up with a design of the movement, where do you get the equipment so sophisticated to make the design of the movement as per what you need? Is that the more difficult part, or the design of the watch itself is more difficult for you, Jorn?
I think it's one whole, and originally it was more difficult because we had to come up with ideas that we haven't, from zero, right? We had to invent from nothing. And that also goes for the movement. And I don't know if you have our moon phase there, but
no, unfortunately no.
Yeah. So for instance, apropos cigars, have a good friend in Spain, Dario, who is also in the watch business. I don't know if Dario is listening into this, but Dario and Morten and I, we invited Dario up to Denmark, and we sat outside. We probably did smoke a cigar. And he said, "Why don't you do a moon phase watch?" And we were like, "Moon phase?" And he said, "Yeah, well, that is the ideal complication for planning a night dive." And that turned into the Octopus Moon, which we've had now for, I guess, about 12, 13 years now. And often when I tell people why we have our moon in a dive watch, they are very surprised because they hadn't really thought about it that way. So I think the first, coming up with an idea from zero is difficult. Then it becomes more of kind of an interpretation of what we have, a development, but also sometimes a reflection, and then going a little bit back. And I think that's what we have done in some of the things that we've done in the last years, and in particular with kind of the relaunch of the 3-timer in 16, which was based on people asking for it, and primarily in the pre-owned market, because there were so many pieces that were being bought and sold. So designing a movement, I think the DNA of the movement is probably the more difficult thing. And for instance, in some of our pieces, and when you have the moon or the dates, is that you can see the past, the present, and the future. And I think that's definitely something that we would like to look a little bit more into. Is that part of our DNA with movements going forward? I think a chronograph is a very kind of can you have a sports watch without having a chronograph? I'm not sure, but it's all it's a very visual and aesthetically pleasing movement.
I can find you one.
So that's the spider light again.
Yes. Yeah. No. I'm saying that I find it's very sporty, although of course it's not a chronograph, but it's it's definitely, I would class this as a sporty timepiece. And when I wear it on the wrist, is so comfortable and so light. I love it.
I mean, for me, it's also, I would say, it's not a favorite piece to wear, because that changes daily. I mean, right now I'm wearing the Octopus double date or Volcano that we did last year with Johnny Dull, and it's a very unique piece, and obviously not to everyone's liking. And then I just took another one because I had that on yesterday, but you can see this is the Spiderlight Arctis, which is in titanium grade 2, but also just with a very pleasant blue dial. It's hard to see.
The artist like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is a limited edition, which is one of my favorite art.
Yeah. So that one is 99 pieces.
Yeah.
And the one that I showed you with the dial is that's the classic version of the Spytos. So we have two generations of the Spytos. The one with the 3D movements, and the more classic where you got a dial covering the movement.
Very good, very good. And in here we go. I'm trying to show obviously the wonderful see-through with a spinning rotor that is visible at the back. Very, very cool. Again, integration of the bracelet is one of the things you don't compromise on. It's that nice detail of having no room, no movements at all between the case and the strap itself. We've seen in all the collections we've shown today that is a common characteristics.
It's kind of an ergonomic. And I think Morten solved that very well in terms of that it sits very easily on the wrist. It doesn't sort of go back and forth, and it provides the opportunity for all our clients to change straps. All our watches work on all our straps, and that means you can have your Monday watch with a black strap, and then your Friday watch with a white, a yellow, or green strap, right? You change strap, you change the watch a lot.
Yeah.
And it's I guess it's a very practical and maybe a very Danish or Scandinavian way of thinking about design, about the flexibility, and you sort of I've always thought a bit about our idea with the instruments a little bit like Lego.
Absolutely, and functionality is a big element. We said it at the beginning, and it's somewhere you've never compromised on. And to answer also Abdullah that is asking me, yes, this Speed Arctis is featuring this very, very nice multi-layers silver color, gray color, really, really cool. A different buckle here with a nice asymmetric take on the buckle. Whereby you don't have to worry about two different sides, but you only pull it from one side and it goes locked.
Yeah, but if I can say one thing here, and we will do this a little bit different in the future, is that is actually it's a bit too thick.
Yeah.
And I know I shouldn't say that.
Yeah. But, you mean the buckle itself? You mean the arm of the buckle?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's personally I wear the Werdelin, but I don't understand why people want to have that type of. But personally I find that when I sit, that then buckle is just a bit on the
buckle itself, and it goes a bit obviously a different direction to what you've
I've said it, we don't need to delve more into it because I don't like to criticize my own things.
Of course, but you can see that obviously the two different takes.
Yeah.
Now, what I like here is the fact that the buckle is actually asymmetrical, so you only have one arm instead of the two that you normally would get, and take care of closing both sides. But in this way, you can just go one way, done. And I think that's very functional, and you
can use the loops.
Absolutely. Let me see. I saw another couple of questions. So this is the limited edition. It's called the Speed Artist Limited Edition, and it is priced at £11,400, excluding VAT. At the limited edition, we are official retailers of Linde Werdelin, so you can find all the information on the website. Sorry, Jorn.
No, and I think also on a personal note, you mentioned the steel bracelet, and steel bracelets are very much kind of the thing of today. Personally, I really like the rubber strap, and not just our rubber strap, but I find them for daily wear and for sports and for being outside, is that they're extremely versatile, very, very tough, and they last a very long time. And we always recommend people to clean their watches in particular when they've been in the sea or close to the sea because of the salt. And with a rubber strap, you take off the watch, you put it on the cold tap. You can even clean it with some mild detergent, right? And bing, it's as new.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, we can see the same collection, the biphometer 3-timer in the option with the rubber and the steel bracelet. Obviously, from the design point, strictly design point of view, they work absolutely perfectly, both of them. In terms of how sporty you are, I think it depends on that, Jorn. I like surfing, for example, and definitely for a surfing section, I would go definitely for the rubber. Yeah, the test on the wrist is very interesting because they both wear really. And I think I insist on the integration and the ergonomicity. You can see here very clearly on my wrist how the watch sits, absolutely in a lovely way. So yes, so again, to answer the question, because I've seen it popped up again, so Linde Werdelin has a dynamic approach to movement making. They collaborate with some of the most important independent movement makers. We talked about Sven Andersen, one of the most important living watchmakers in the world. It's as simple as that. We talked about Frederic. We talked about Cvstos. We talked about Jean-François Mojon from Chronod, who's also very famous for some very interesting collaborations with MBNF, HYT, and other watch.
And without saying too much, when we finally get over this period where most things happen via Instagram Live or Zoom, and we can get back to Switzerland and back into the lab with Jean-François and his team, that's what will come out next from us in terms of a movement inspiration or
brilliant.
A further addition to one of our families.
Brilliant. We just became official retailers for Cyrus as well, which is the brand that is
yes.
On Jean-François' work. So we look forward to that, Jorn, very much. So I was going to ask you if you could kind of disclose any plans for the future, and I think you have just done. Unless there is anything else from the design point of view that you can announce, any new editions that are going to be launched this year.
No, what I can say is that we will do probably another 6 series this year. Actually, I wanted to show you this today, the Octopus Blue Sea that we did with James Thompson, but unfortunately it's not here today.
I know where it is. It's with our friends the Scottish Watches. I know that.
I think it is, and I hope we will speak to them soon also.
Absolutely.
I mean that was a piece that I'm really very delighted with because of the challenge of making loom an integral part of the dial and the watch, but not let it kind of mitigate the beauty of the watch when it's not loomed. And I think James really solved that very nicely. So I mean, we got a couple of we got one project going on with Johnny Dow, which we have done 3 series with till to date, and we have another project going on with James Thompson, which is still very early days and sort of quite say almost opposite of how we thought about the Blue Sea, because the Blue Sea was about creating layers of loom color, like when you look into the sea, so that it becomes darker the deeper you go.
Sure.
And the next one we are doing, which we very early days working on, is about something wholly different in terms of what we can do with loom. Yeah,
very good, very good. We're looking forward to that, and we will keep sharing the love, Jorn, because I think, and I always mention this, sometimes the fact that you've been around with the brand pioneering, independent watchmaking for the last 20 years doesn't make you justice, because the brand sometimes comes under the radar, and it is definitely one of our favorite sport chic watchmakers out there. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to have the watches here for real. We don't do this very often, and but I know that our followers really enjoy when we can show the real thing. Besides the protagonist, that is, we've had you already. We were lucky enough to have you for a few interviews that are available out there on the limited edition Instagram channel. There is
thank you, Pietro. And just before we ended, like you said, we're a bit under the radar, and to some extent, I don't mind. And the reason that I say that is, you have in our industry, we have great times and we have awful times. It is a very cyclical industry. And I think part of my experience from beginning in 2002 is that you have to be look at the long perspective and also be a little humble about where you are, and not sort of go overboard and say we are the coolest, we are the best, we are this, we are that, and but actually just kind of live with it, and therefore I'm very happy if we are under the radar. We don't need to jump around like a monkey in a circus.
It's a very refreshing philosophy, and we all know now with this other crisis that we just lived, that only the brands that look at the demand before the production can survive, and can survive very well. With the limited edition, we're having our best year in since when we started, and it's because we are lucky enough to work with artisans watchmakers that look at and think customer rather than thinking producing volumes, and it's very important.
Well, that's why we're here. End of story, right? We are here for our customers. I know it sounds like a cliche, but that's really it. Absolutely.
And thank you, Jorn. There's always a lot to talk about. There is one last question, if you want.
Sure.
From Gabriel, asking, maybe a crazy question, he says, but can you have a movement which inside a vacuum chamber so that the balance spring continues on forever and there's no friction? Well, this is a bit of the holy grail of horology.
That is probably a question that's a little bit too scientific for me. I mean, that would be what's called an eternity machine, right? So I honestly don't think that that's possible. But I think there's been some very interesting things. Do you remember Martin Braun and the watches they did with this enormous, mainspring? Do you remember they filled the hole off the back, and it's like whoosh, whoosh. And I thought that was a very beautiful interpretation of it. But obviously, that's not the question. But honestly, I think no. The answer must to that be no.
Well, it is in the DNA of independent watchmaking. Since in modern days, since George Daniel's work, of course, with the coaxial escapement, all the work that has been done on the natural escapement, and all the tricks to try to avoid or reduce friction, which is a bit of an enemy of mechanical movement, but at the same time, it is also a friend, because it kind of makes it more human, a more human machine. Has some restrictions, and it allows us to take care of it as well, which is the magic of mechanical watchmaking. Jorn, what to say? Thank you very much for this. We are holding on to these watches because we also have a video coming out with hopefully Scottish watches very soon.
Okay, great.
But we've really enjoyed the possibility to show this live with you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your time, and thank you for everybody's time.
No problem. We'll be in touch soon again. I'm sure when the new collections will be out in 2021, it will be our pleasure to have you again with us. Thank you so much, Jorn.
Well, thank you so much. Speak to you soon, Pietro.
Take care. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.